You've heard me mention many times that we are battling against the Ark of Osiris Season 2 champions, Hong Kong Legends, and they are very good at field fighting. Those same tactics, some of them, apply to Kingdom versus Kingdom, and today we're going to showcase some of the biggest brawls, the baddest encounters that we've had over the past couple days, so stick around for some amazing open field fighting that is a lot of fun to watch. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, a sponsored content creator for Rise of Kingdoms, and we're in KvK, Heroic Anthem, where we are battling against the impressive kingdom that houses Hong Kong Legends. In this video, we are showcasing some open field combat. This is going to be at 1.25x speed, slightly sped up to put a little bit more pep into the action here so that you can enjoy these crazy brawls, and these are some of the most fun open field brawls we've had in quite some time. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies in the open field, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. In this moment, I've gotten myself outnumbered right next to the HKL pass, and it's about to get really dicey for me. I'm brawling with 2 million, nearly 2 million, T5 troops, so when I make a mistake and I overcommit, it is a very large and expensive hospital bill that I'm going to pay for if I have to deal with that. And yeah, I'll be paying with those resources, baby, to heal those troops. So here you can see that I got myself into a 2-on-1 situation. For every march I have, there's at least 2 more on the field to fight me. And I'm stuck here. I am committed. I am actually pot committed to this brawl that I took, because if I just run away, they'll just chase me down and they'll get free hits on me. So I may as well stay and fight and do the best I can. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the different marches that we brought to the field. And in this particular instance, thank goodness, Sterling has arrived to the party to save the day, bringing his 5 marches, setting the balance to be a bit more even between us and the folks that we're brawling against. P.S. Unrelated note, Sterling lost 40 million power in the first pass 4 opening, matter of hours that he was online for that. So yeah, pretty crazy. So here we are brawling with Sterling in the field by the pass. And I want to talk to you about the marches that we've chosen to bring to the field in this video. I want to showcase a bunch of the footage from some big brawls. This is the smallest combat, by the way, that we'll be showing you in this video. Everything else was just huge. Now, in this last moment of this clip, you can see I start to retreat some of my troops, and I use some of my remaining troops to give a little bit of air cover. I want to call attention to the troops that are left standing. Attila Takeda, and also Charles Martel with Harold. By the way, my hospital bill for that one encounter was 180,000 troops, and I think I put somewhere in the realm of 750,000 to 1 million of theirs in the hospital in that short little arrangement. So here we are now battling at a pass. Big fight. Big brawl. I mean, this is like your Ark of Osiris battle in the center sort of a brawl, where you'd think, hey, Chisgule, why aren't you using all marches that have area of effect damage? And in fairness, it is possible that we should be using more area of effect damage. I wanted to call your attention to the Attila Takeda and also to the Charles Martel and Harold at the end of that clip, because they typically are, for me, the last of my marches that get targeted, which means actually they do really well. A march that is ignored in a big brawl like this does a lot of damage, because I've got 370,000 plus T5 troops bearing down with some amazing tech from Heroic Anthem KvK, doing some serious work on the opponent of my choice. So the marches that I've brought for the open field brawling include the following, and we need to talk about this. I used Guan with Alex, a lot of march speed, a lot of area of effect damage, huge shielding effect, and debuffing, very powerful. I've also used Saladin with William. William, I have said, is possibly one of the most important legendaries for a free-to-play player to bring to a big brawl like this. They do area of effect damage, they buff everybody, and they are way more powerful than a Joan of Arc. That said, Saladin has the tankiness necessary in order to give William the survivability needed, with the 30% less skill damage taken, as well as 20% less counterattack damage taken from the 3rd skill of Saladin. That gives William the air cover he needs to do some work. I'm also using Edward with Esong. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Edward, and it's no secret that that's the case. However, Edward, I think, is in some ways better than the El Cid for this style of Brawl. It's arguable that the March speed on El Cid is really good. The instant proc for 1,000 damage factor on the second skill of El Cid is also really good. Maybe I should be using El Cid with Esong, but I'll tell you, if I used either of those as a primary, those would get focused out so fast, there'd be no point to even show up with them. Edward offers enough of the tankiness, enough of the counterattack boost, that people will be punished when they target him, and yeah, they do target him, and you'll see that a lot in these clips. In addition, I bring the Attila Takeda and the Charles Martel with Herald, as I mentioned earlier, which largely get ignored. And in a big brawl like this, that means I'm running around free crushing people with 370,000 T5s. Yeah, that's a fine march to bring in that context. Might there be some area of effect damage that would be better? Like, should I have figured out like a Guan, or maybe not Guan, a Mehmed with like Sun Tzu, or like, I don't know. Maybe one of those marches, even though they wouldn't have any march speed, would be better just for the raw volume of area of effect damage. But I did try to bring some amount of march speed to my marches here so that I'm not just completely caught out when I make a mistake. And yeah, I make mistakes. And yeah, they get punished very heavily by the impressive HKL in Kingdom 30. So we're brawling now at this pass, and you can see, oh man, there's an El Cid behind the line here that is just way out of position, gets completely savaged. The marches that we've brought here, I think, have worked fairly well for me. A part of the reason I have chosen these marches, by the way, is that I have solid sets of equipment to go on them. I've got 2 solid infantry sets, 2 decent, one really amazing and 1 decent cavalry set, and 1 really good archer set. So yeah, I want to have the extra stats that those sets make available to me. And so that's another consideration that went into my bringing these marches and battling in the field. Of course, the things that I'm targeting when I'm in this position, and honestly, it's very hard to target anything in a big brawl like this. There were a non-trivial number of times where I would try to target something and my whole screen would slide. Instead of actually tapping, I had done a slide gesture, I guess. It was difficult to control this many marches all at once. Let me just put it like that. So as much as possible, I'm not trying to do any like fancy double tap weirdness and drag and drop. I am targeting 1 march, and I have all my marches go target it. And I try to just blow it up as fast as possible. And with all of these marches, I try not to be behind the sort of invisible enemy line. And one thing you'll see, in fact, I mean, you can even see it on the map right now, is that there's sort of a line that forms where we're behind one portion of that line and the enemy is behind the other portion. And if you step over that line, you become the focused down target. So you can charge in like that if you want, but expect to get punished for it. And I did not bring a combination of marches that would work well for that. If I wanted to be playing in that way, going way deep into enemy territory, behind the sort of line, if you will, then I should be using all marches like the Charles Martel Herald, the Attila Takeda, the things that get ignored by the enemy because it punishes them to hit them. Attila Takeda does almost half their damage from counterattack. Same is true, by the way, of the Charles Martel with Herald. They're going to do a lot more damage if they get targeted. So the enemy did a very good job of just straight up ignoring those marches. So I might reconfigure to use something like even Richard I with Ethelfled, or things that, you know, pick a primary commander that people want to ignore so that I could go deeper into the enemy lines without worrying about being punished as much. That said, I will say there were some commanders that I bumped up against that have continued to impress me beyond what I would have expected. One of those commanders, by the way, is Artemisia. Another is Ramses. In the field, both of those commanders, not necessarily paired together, but both of those commanders are very, very effective and do an astonishing and alarming amount of damage. And the Artemisia is shockingly tanky. In this last patch, there was an update made that so that when she does her area of effect damage, she doesn't put her own troops in the hospital when she does her sort of self-damaging effect there. I think she is a very strong choice for the field, and if I had her expertise, I absolutely would be using her with the Esong instead of the Edward, for sure. Slam dunk, easy pick, easy pick. Now, of course, with the Cyrus the Great on their way very soon, and Nebuchadnezzar coming very soon, those are commanders I expect would see a fair amount of play as well. But let's talk for a second about this idea of the tanky marches that you want people to ignore and the high damage marches. And I've got several high damage marches here, right? The Edward is a high damage march. The Guan Alex is a high damage march. The Saladin William is a high damage march, even though they have some amount of tankiness. And what I found when I looked at my reports, and yeah, there's a lot of reports we were pouring through. What I found is that often my Attila Takeda and also my ignored Charles Martel with Herald did just about as much damage as my other marches, with the exception of perhaps the Edward Esong, who were doing just huge amounts of area of effect damage. And anytime they did not pressure my Edward Esong, I got some really sick value out of that. But spoiler alert, yes, of course, they focus down the Edward with Esong. And you'll see in this clip that that happens a lot. So much so that I often find myself repositioning slightly back and then charging back in. And that was sometimes easier than picking a new target that was in the middle of the fray. In fact, that's what I just did. That also lets me really wail on some folks, and I am teleported very close to where this action is happening. So what I would often do is retreat a march that would get to 50%, and then, have it go home, refresh it, bring it back in, and I would kind of cycle one march out kind of regularly. So here you can see, by the way that Kingdom 30 with Hong Kong Legends, HKL, pushes out of their pass. And they don't have like one person step out, but they have dozens of marches roll out at the same time, and they eat up anybody that's right at the pass. They are probably in voice together picking out some of these targets, if I had to guess, because some of these folks just get obliterated so fast, and that's the thing you want to do. You want to build as much momentum as you can to create space so that you can then move to a more prominent position in the battlefield. And that's what's allowed HKL to push out of the pass in this instance. Now, I'm in the middle of this fray somewhere. It's hard to control, hoping for the best, targeting what I can. I might have even just targeted a march that was no longer there. That happened to me a couple times where I would target something and it would tell me it was behind the pass. And I was like, what do you mean? It's right next to me. So there were definitely a few issues with being able to effectively brawl in this mode. But I'll be honest, it was mostly pretty seamless with the number of folks that we had in this particular instance. And there were some bigger brawls than this. So among the things that we try to focus down includes commanders like Esong, El Cid as well, because usually there's an Esong hiding behind it. Alexander the Great is another target that, Alex has a lot of stats and he's very powerful, but is actually kind of squishy. Even though he's shielding himself, he doesn't have a lot of defense. So when you go all in on an Alexander the Great, it'll disappear pretty quickly. And what I noticed is that the folks of Kingdom 30 seem to really enjoy using the Alex Herald combination. And I like what they're doing there. If the Charles Martel with Herald is getting ignored, the Alexander the Great will do even more damage than the Charles Martel is going to do. So I like that choice. And there's also sort of a question that could be made, by the way, if I should be using 5 marches that are all glass cannon rather than having a few that are more tanky. And that's a fair argument. I feel like I'm pretty happy with the choices that I've made here. And by the way, at the time of this recording, my civilization is Germany, which you could see when I was refreshing my troops a moment ago on the screen. If you wanted to sort of micro-optimize for a big field brawl like this, then a choice that you could make is to be a civilization like Ottoman. Ottoman is solid because you get the 5% extra march speed. Rome would also be pretty good for a brawl like this, especially if you're being infantry heavy, and a lot of people do that. In this day and age, however, in kingdoms as old as ours, and our kingdom is like 750 plus days old, I will say that there are plenty of archers running around to really punish infantry. The scariest units that I feel like we bumped up against on the battle were Artemisia and Ramses. When I saw those commanders, even if I focus them down and try to eliminate them from the brawl, I found myself getting into trouble sometimes because they're very, very powerful. So here you can see HKL has created a lot of space around the pass. And I think it's really critical that we were ported right next to this pass, by the way. By virtue of being next to the pass, I mean, if we were marching 5 minutes to refresh our marches, they actually would push their way successfully out of the pass. And right now, although it's not the case at the time of this recording, but right now it's the Mightiest Governor kill event. And there was a lot of brawling going on. Flags are getting planted down, and people are trying to sort of build out of the zone. HKL has not given up, even though, remarkably, I believe they were a top 10 kingdom by Imperium status, so by power, and they are now out of Imperium, which is crazy. So they have lost an astonishing amount of power over the last week or so of battling. By the way, if you haven't seen some of my recent videos, I'll have a card up in the top for Pass 4 opening and some city zeroing that took place. I mean, it's been pretty wild. So now we're getting closer to pushing them back to their pass, by the way. And a part of the reason that so much brawling is taking place in Heroic Anthem KvK is that in order to get your KvK rewards, you need to get to 30 million kills. That's right, 30 million Sev wounds inflicted, and that is a lot to get the maximum rewards. So players are trying to accomplish that, and I like that as a motivator, but I also feel like that's a very tall order for a free-to-play player in Heroic Anthem. Maybe that will get easier as we make our way further in and folks are able to tech up a bit more. But I am a little concerned about how achievable that is for most players. What we're going to show you in a moment is one such situation where Kingdom 30 built their way out of their pass. And when they built their way out of their pass, we actually needed to rally down a flag. So there will be a rally in addition to some open field brawling in the next portion of this video. By the way, I'd be kind of curious to hear down below in the comments if you think there are other marches that we should be bringing. I considered using a commander like Constantine for his buff, but I'm trying to get as many kills as I can, so I don't know. I'm going a little bit more heavy on the damage than I normally might. Here you can see we switched. Now we're at the northern pass. We were at the southern pass before, and we're looking to clear this area out where they have built out of their pass. And this is going to take some flag rallies to get the job done. So first, we're brawling in the field, and I'm pretty outnumbered in this little brawl. My focus, again, is primarily on Ethelfled when I see it first. I focus that down. Then on archers. And from there, it might be cavalry or infantry. I mean, commanders like Khan, I focus them out a lot as well. Any march that I see that is fairly squishy is going to be a prime target. And you can see, by the way, in this recording, that my Edward had the snot kicked out of it. It's down to a tiny sliver of red. Possible I shouldn't have even retreated it because it's so beat up. It's not going to make it out of there. It's just going to get chased away. But you see that's generally what folks are doing. And you see, by the way, my other 4 marches are practically full. So the archers got focused down. I'm not at all surprised. We send that march home. We brawl with the other ones, and that's an ongoing process. For an open field brawl like this, by the way, that's sort of a sustained encounter, at least for a T5 player, healing is actually really good. It enables you to stay on the field for much longer. In this instance, not all of my marches have healing, but some of the ones that don't have healing have shielding, like the Guan Alex, like the Charles Martel Herald. Those are a few examples of marches that we enjoy using, largely because they've got that extra sustain and can hang for long enough. I don't have to retreat them home after like 10 seconds of battling, unless I get focused, in which case, GG, the march has to run home. So in just a moment, we'll cut to the rallies taking place, and it's going to be a Zenobia and I believe Constantine garrison. So the rally that we're going to use here is going to be a Ramses E-Song. Negan is leading the rally. May as well just call him The Voice. Negan the Voice is leading the rally, and here is the Zenobia. Because it's a Constantine secondary, we can be next to this flag. This flag, by the way, for those of you who've made it this far into the video, is going to get swarmed. A flag swarm awaits you. So this is kind of a fun ending to this one, because flag swarms, if done correctly, burn out a garrison really quickly. If done poorly, you lose a lot of troops, and the enemy side gets a lot of points toward those 30 million Sev wounds they need to inflict. So we're trying to control the field here as much as we can and prevent people from reinforcing. But I think the reality of this situation, where there are so many cities ported next to the flag, is that they're just going to walk from city to city, and it's very hard to stop them. It is very hard to stop a march from getting into the flag if they do any amount of city hopping, and there are cities nearby that they can move their way through, which is the case here. So I haven't yet found a march where I would say I'm really thrilled with how it counters Zenobia. Maybe it exists. In fact, if it does, do me a huge favor, drop into the comments the best thing that you found for dealing with Zenobia and whatever you want to pair her with. Because right now it feels like a major garrison metagame in Rise of Kingdoms. In other words, defending is easier and more profitable than attacking, not only because the defender actually is advantaged in many cases where troops do go to the hospital instead of just straight dying, but also because garrison is just so good right now. I don't know if Cyrus and Nebu are going to bring the sort of balance that we're looking for here. I guess we'll see. Now, the folks that we're battling here, Negan, has pretty solid tech, and the person that we're battling against has honestly pretty amazing technology. And I mentioned this in a previous video, that if I were doing Heroic Anthem over again, the thing that I would advise to like big spenders in Rise of Kingdoms would actually be to pull forward a whole bunch of your spending to the very first part of Heroic Anthem and then just chill for a while. That's what I sort of did, and I sort of wish I had done more of that, where basically, I'm purchasing mostly to get gems to do events, and so I make more purchases when I need more gems to go and do more events. Well, I just pulled forward a bunch of that spending I would have done over a long period of time to the front of Heroic Anthem KvK, and then I chill out for a while because I have more than enough gems, so I mostly don't need to be buying. So here you can see, by the way, time to swarm the garrison. I probably should have got in on that, and I basically have been trying to reinforce this rally for a very long time, and because I have 370,000 troops, I didn't even get into the rally. I was sort of surprised, actually, that in order to get into a rally, you might need to have a march nearby that just doesn't have an expansion. Here we are, by the way. Garrison, captain is down, and victory. Looking to the damage, 661,000 for us, 450,000 for them, but a power change that is in our favor. They lost about 1 million more power than we did, although admittedly that goes to the hospital. Hopefully you're having a relaxing and safe holiday season, and if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, throw a like onto here and consider subscribing for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. Check out those cards we shared earlier for some of the crazy KvK action we had earlier this week, and until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.